Hi all, my name is Kartikey and I will be presenting our work titled The Evolution of Internet Traffic Filtering. In this work, we studied the evolution of internet traffic filtering in India. We report a novel form of filtering, that is, mobile app blocking. After detailed investigation of mechanics involved, we report a three-tiered app filtering scheme. Further, we present simple yet effective circumvention schemes to bypass app blocking at each tier. As a natural progression, we also studied the current state of website filtering in India. We performed our experiments in 4 major ISPs of India. As a result, we observed some major upgrades in filtering mechanisms such as incorporation of HTTPS filtering and DNS injection by the ISPs. Finally, we were successful in bypassing all current website filtering mechanisms. Following is a timeline of events that motivated us to conduct this study. With these events, there has been a rise in the amount of content being filtered in addition to the evolution of mechanics involved. This motivated us to study the current underlying filtering mechanisms and devise circumvention techniques if at all possible. Now, let us take a look at the details of app filtering investigation. The 220 apps became unavailable on Indian app stores. Thus, we first tried to obtain APK bundles for them from our overseas contacts. Interestingly, 60 among these 220 apps were likely not operational. From the remaining 160 apps, we observed that 136 apps were directly accessible after installation. Now, we manually tried running the remaining 24 apps and observed some kind of blocking notification from legitimate app servers and not from Indian ISPs, which is generally the case with website filtering, implying the role of app publishers themselves in app filtering. To investigate the specifics used by app publishers, we moved to the second step. We hypothesized that app publishers might be using geo-blocking to restrict Indian users. In addition to IP geo-blocking, we considered content restricting at CDN edge servers as well. We considered 4 scenarios. With Indian source IP, we observed that all apps were blocked, irrespective of Indian or foreign edge servers. Surprisingly, with foreign source IP and Indian edge servers, we observed that 15 out of 24 apps were accessible. Also, with foreign source IP and foreign edge servers, 16 out of 24 apps were accessible. The additional app Chess Rush was the only one which was IP geo-blocked as well as filtered at Indian edge servers. With the remaining 8 apps, we then moved to step 3. In this step, we selected TikTok out of the 8. We analyzed its traffic via MITM proxy and observed multiple parameters with values set as IN in the HTTP headers, which signifies India. After this, we decompiled and reverse engineered the app to trace this IN. We discovered that app fetches the country code from the SIM card of the smartphone and sets a certain parameter to IN. On simply changing this parameter using MITM proxy, we were able to bypass the blocking. Observation was similar when we simply removed the SIM card. Manual inspection of the rest of the apps revealed that this mechanism was being used for all the 8 apps. After this, we segregated the apps into 3 tiers with increasing sophistication with each tier. Following the announcement of permanent ban, we observed that tier 1 apps were now IP geo-blocked as well, further increasing the sophistication of filtering. Simply turning on VPN and removing SIM card from smartphone was sufficient to bypass this. Now, let us take a look at the details of website filtering investigation. Previous studies have reported the involvement of Indian ISPs in achieving website filtering, which is also consistent in our findings. We curated a potential block list from multiple sources which gave us 4619 unique domains which had valid DNS records, and 2895 of them were up and hosting HTTP and HTTPS services. we conducted our experiments in 4 major ISPs, namely Airtel, Vodafone, Jio, and ACT. We first started with DNS-based filtering. DNS filtering is achieved using two mechanisms. In DNS poisoning, DNS servers in the ISP return bogon IP for blocked websites, whereas in DNS injection, DNS query from a user is intercepted and a fake DNS response is returned while spoofing the legitimate DNS server. In Airtel, we observed DNS poisoning, whereas in ACT, we observed both poisoning and injection. To conduct a systematic study, we curated a list of all open DNS resolvers in both the ISPs. We then sent 4619 domains in our potential block list for DNS resolution to each of the resolvers. For DNS poisoning, we observed that 40% of the resolvers were poisoned and 25% of the sent domains were blocked in Airtel. In ACT, 11% of the resolvers were poisoned and 50% of the sent domains were blocked. Also, within ACT, we observed DNS injection on network paths to all the resolvers in ACT. We further curated a list of 100 open DNS servers throughout the world. Surprisingly, we found DNS injection on network paths to 54 of those open resolvers. In consistency with previous studies, we did not observe TCP/IP filtering in any of the ISPs. So we next moved to HTTP and HTTPS filtering. We observed this form of filtering in Airtel, Jio, and Vodafone. In our experiments, we sent HTTP and HTTPS requests from our potential block list. The number of HTTP and HTTPS filtering are present on the screen. To achieve DNS injection, HTTP and HTTPS filtering, ISPs deploy additional network hardware on paths between users and servers, which are termed as middle boxes. They monitor the traffic between users and servers and are responsible for triggering specific blocking mechanisms for observing user requests for blocked content. Previous studies have reported two kinds of middle boxes, namely wiretapping and interceptive, with only difference being that wiretapping middle boxes only terminate the connection between client and server and lets the legitimate response from server to reach the client, whereas interceptive middle boxes terminates the connection as well as blocks the legitimate response. That is why interceptive middle boxes achieve stricter filtering than wiretapping middle boxes and are more complex to circumvent. Thus, as a next step, we conducted experiments to determine the type of middle boxes currently deployed by the ISPs and compared our findings with what was reported by Yadav et al. In 2018. All the ISPs used wiretapping middle boxes only for HTTP filtering back in 2018. But now, 2 out of the 3 ISPs have upgraded to use interceptive middle boxes in addition to all 3 ISPs being involved in HTTPS filtering as well. This clearly shows the evolution of ISPs to achieve stricter control. Lastly, we stumbled upon a very interesting observation. In Jio and Vodafone, if we send blocked websites in request destined to benign websites as blocking triggers, we observe minimal blocking. But if the same experiment is repeated with destinations changed to actually blocked websites, we observed maximal blocking. This implies that these ISPs have carefully placed their middle boxes to maximize coverage in their intranets. Such strategic decisions further support the idea of filtering evolution by the ISPs. That was all from my side. Thank you for listening.